Hey, and welcome to the Pursuit of Healthiness podcast. I'm your host, Renanda van Delft. I'm a health and mindset coach, spaghetti and ice cream lover, travel junk, and a cat mom. I love conversations that are on a more raw and deeper level. And today's guest is Mindfulness Coach Janie Terrazas. She's an inspiration igniter and a humanitarian at heart. Her mission is to empower and teach others how to tap into the power of peace that lies within so they can experience more joy, vitality, and prosperity in all areas of life. She specializes in self-care practices, overcoming childhood traumas, and restoring relationships. She says that the most important intimate relationship we will cultivate and nurture is the one within ourselves. To know thyself is to care for thyself. In today's episode, we're going to dive deeper into real relationships and how to balance mind, body, and soul.
Okay. So welcome, Janie. I am so excited to have you on my show today. I have an introduction of you, and that's already like describing who you are, but I love to hear from you. Who is Janie to you?
Okay. The first word that is coming to my mind, funny enough, is inspiration igniter. I'm also an awesomeness finder. And I'll explain that in a minute. And a lighter. Now,
Love it. I don't know. Sounds positive.
and as a mindfulness coach, I'm really here to help people with learning how to live on purpose in the now, non-judgmentally. And it's a daily practice. That's becoming a very skilled observer of self, because you come to understand what self-accountability and self-acceptance is all about. So there's a lot of work that goes into self-love, know thyself, heal thyself. That for me was a path that was extremely important for me to take. I wanted to know what I am, who I am, how does my brain work, how does my physiology and psychology, like what are those two things and how are they interacting? What is source, creator, the universe? Why are we here? I started asking really big questions. Like, I think it was probably in about 2011. I came across a book called Disappearance of the Universe, and that led me to A Course in Miracles. And to me, that book is really the message of Yeshua or Jesus without the fear. It's a whole different take on what God is. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there was a lot of things that I had to overcome when it came to religious ideologies and beliefs. But luckily, I'm the kind of person that has a mind that has always been really flexible and malleable. Like there was always a piece of me that was open to change and liked change. Now, not all change is fun, okay?
Absolutely not.
Not at all. Like my whole thing was, who am I without all of my traumas and all of these narratives and all these ideas, all these things that shaped my identity and my personality? And what parts of me do I like? And what parts of me are maybe not so becoming, maybe not so balanced? And I took that journey very seriously. So going back to those things, inspiration igniter, awesomeness finder, lighter, I had to understand what that meant for myself first. I wanted to know, I have a very childlike outlook on life. And funny enough, when it comes to returning to your natural organic essence, that is a lot of inner child work that needs to be done. Yeah. And the reason why that's important is because that little kid in you is showing up in your relationships, in your relationships. I call it real relationships.
I love
the
that.
most important one that you will have is the one with yourself, as cheesy as that sounds. So there is a deep intimacy. It's going in and learning, why do I think what I think and how do I think like this? And what do I want? And why do I really want that? And what was serving me and what's now not serving me? Just giving a shit about yourself, like on a whole nother level. And when you go deeply into self, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, you're a treasure chest, guys. Like I learn something new all the time, not just about myself. Like if I wanted to, I could, but it's just about life. So I think it's a mindset and an outlook. And they say a lot of times, and it's even written, I think, in the Bible. Okay, a lot of religions talk about this, but there's a line in the Bible, and Jesus says something along the lines of, "We must return to the innocence of the child in order for us to truly enter the kingdom of heaven." Now, the thing is, he also says heaven is already laid upon earth. You just need to have the eyes to be able to see it.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned to think that peace, it's like rest in peace. No, live in peace. How do you live in peace? How do you become fully alive? You think because you have breath, you're alive? No. If you're stressed, if you're worried, if you're complaining all the time, if you're bitter, if you're jaded, this is you dialing in to some thought patterns and igniting emotions that is causing a biochemistry reaction inside of you. When I started realizing that what I was thinking and what I was feeling was speaking to my endocrine system. Like it was basically telling my nervous system, which, by the way, guys, is a metaphor and a symbol for heaven and hell. Because when you are stressed and angry and all this stuff, which we cannot eradicate these things, but you need to understand where it's really coming from, how often you're tapping into it and why, and what the F it's actually doing to your brain. Okay? If you want a healthy brain and you want a healthy heart, then you need to care about your feelings. You need to care about what you're thinking, because it's causing an electrical pulse, a frequency. And then that speaks to the glands. It speaks, the nervous system is either, hey guys, NASA, we have a problem. And the mind body doesn't know if you're running from a lion, or if you're worried about taking a test, or if you start using the power of your imagination to create a worst case scenario that might happen. Start to see what happens in your body when you project a picture like that. Yeah. Or if you recall a past memory, a joyful one and or a not so good one, and then see how you start to feel on the inside. We are disembodied from our bodies. There's all this information that's taking place, and we're disconnected from it because we're so living in our head. As a mindfulness coach, I help people learn about themselves in a way that empowers them, how your being impacts your well-being. And if you're not peaceful inside, we were talking about earlier that heaven and hell and love and fear, it's that optimism and that pessimistic outlook on life, the gloom and doom. And then there's that other, like the people that find the silver lining in really shitty scenarios. Just because I've been practicing this for a long time, I got into mindfulness, I think like 5 years ago. I'm going to take a drink of water really quick.
Yeah, no, just do it.
I got so much energy coursing through me. Like, I'm like, and it's not nervousness. It's just like, I get all like fired up.
Yeah, I get that.
Oh my God. And then I talk so fast. So hopefully you're following everything and it's all flowing together.
Yes, it is. I can perfectly understand everything.
Practicing mindfulness for about 5 years now. Okay, great. Like a kid, they're like, and you're like, oh my God, slow down.
I love it. Go ahead.
Yeah, mindfulness. So I really started to be mindful of what I was thinking, what I was saying, what I was doing. I became much more deliberate and intentional about what I was watching, what I was listening to, because basically our senses, they're taking in information. And even like music, there's certain music that the words and the lyrics and the hertz that it plays at, actually it causes dissonance in the cells. And then there's other music that kind of lights up the cells. The cells in the body. We have about 100 trillion cells in our body, and all of those cells are hearing your thoughts. They're feeling you, and then the body responds to it. When we're not at ease, if you are mentally and or emotionally not at ease, it creates disease.
True.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, you know what,
Go
I
ahead.
just want to talk about this really quick. I
Yeah.
saw, I think a couple of years ago, like a study about tears, and tears that come from joy, tears that come from being sad. And I was like, and even under the microscope, they look different. And I was like, oh my God, like to us, when you see it, it's just a water drop. But it's not. The whole structure is different.
It is. And if you look up Dr. Emoto, Emoto, he already passed away, but he was a genius man who was really curious about water. And he noticed how the molecular structure of the water would change based on the sound or even words that you would speak into it. So I can talk about that video for days, but if you look it up, it's amazing. Basically, it's like sacred geometry that shows up within the cell. But if you say, I hate you, I hope you die, and then basically he gets a droplet, a little eyedropper, and then freezes it and has a microscopic camera that can go within and see the molecular structure of the water. And it was all sort of like distorted. And then the same cup of water, he'd be like, oh, I love you, peace be in you. And then, and then it would look completely different.
Yeah.
So when they say power of word, get curious about this, guys. This is not just esoteric spiritual stuff that they talk about. There's something in that we have to get curious about, because that we're made of 70% water.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
why I wanted to bring it up. That's why it's so important, the way we think and talk about ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And also too, funny enough, y'all, when we think and speak ugly about other people, it feels it. And so it's hurting you too. When you smile at another person, that person gets a dose of oxytocin, and so do you. That's the good stuff. That feel good like chemical, that cuddle love hormone, they call it. Isn't that awesome? That just that the body feels the muscles go in a certain way, and then it sends a signal to it. That's why movement, nonverbals, when it comes to communication, these are things that are not taught to us, guys. And how else are we going to learn unless we seek? You have to seek out knowledge. Knowledge is power, but how you use it, that's also a big responsibility.
Yeah.
And I wanted to use all of my knowledge, and my knowledge becomes wisdom once it is embodied and becomes like your default system. You know how to use it. It's not just like some cerebral information. It has been integrated into your mind, your body, your heart, and your soul, and you get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so whatever knowledge and wisdom I've acquired through life experiences and things that I've studied, I just happen to have that fire inside of me that wants to use my tools that I have available to me to share that. So doing group coaching, one-on-one coaching, it was just a sort of a natural progression, I think, in my journey that I was called to do. And being able to tie the mind and body work with my spiritual understandings and the intuitive information and data that comes through, it's awesome. Like, I love what I do, and that we should all love what we do to some degree, for God's sakes. I mean, that's where bliss is. It's, you got to find what lights you up, what interests you. And it doesn't mean you're always going to end up doing it as a profession, but man, if you've always God, I've always wanted to paint, but what if I get it wrong? And I don't know. And it's like, who cares? Go back to that kid. Do you think kids care about when they're painting something? They're not in their head. They're in their flow, man. They're in their heart. We got to drop into the heart and get, and that's where enthusiasm. A lot of people feel apathy about life, just kind of, and trust me, I have my days where I feel melancholy, but now I recognize the beauty in the highs and lows of life. And instead of beating myself up, I for a hot second, I put together a spiritual ego. We fall into these spiritual egos sometimes, where it's like, I should know better. And why am I doing blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
And luckily, my higher self, my intuition, God, whatever you want to call it, that teaches me and speaks to me in the most awesome, compassionate, loving, forgiving, merciful, objective, intelligent, and funny way to help me see, like a different way and what's really going on, and that it's okay, man. This place, this is a place of gravity, so dance and sing as often as you can. And when you're feeling a little bit because you're sad about the world, that's okay, because sadness doesn't last forever. This too shall pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I love your energy. I want to talk about the relationship that you talked about earlier. When it comes to having relationships with other people, with yourself, can you tell a little bit more about that? Because I love that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I have been marrying people. It's one of my jobs. I'm a wedding officiant here in San Antonio, Texas. And before I became a wedding officiant, I was working as a relationship coach. I started doing that in, I think it was like 2012, 2013. And I put together what's called the safe communication method. And this too was sort of divinely offered to me, and I, transcribed it, and it was like, wow, the safe steps are for safe self-discovery. And it's also a method in which people can have safe communication, which is about learning how to communicate honestly and effectively. Communicate what? Your wants, your needs, your desires, your insecurities, your fears, your concerns. But that's information you need to know about yourself. You need to understand all that. And most people don't know a lot of why they are the way they are. And that stuff comes into relationships. You see, our relationship that we had with our parents, or the one we didn't have, however that looked, that shapes what's called an attachment style. Okay. And I'm going to go over the safe steps in just a moment. I also mentioned the word real relationship, and real and safe really do go hand in hand. People need to be themselves in partnership, where they could just feel free to be all of themselves. But most people don't even really know who themselves are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because we are falling into love. It's very easy to fall into love. Okay. But what I'm helping people do is like step into unconditional love realms. But first you have to learn what that is, because people hear that and they think that that includes no boundaries. See, a lot of us suffer from lack of healthy boundaries. And so the safe self-discovery gives you the empowerment and the ability and the steps needed for you to be able to find your voice. A lot of these attachment styles, there's 3 of them: anxious, secure, and avoidant. Now, there's a combination and there's some variations, but it's really important for y'all to know your attachment style. I have a thing called the Know Thyself Jumpstarter Kit. It's like I think it's like 9-page PDF, or it's a few pages that has 9 tests on it. That's what it is. The number 9 kept coming. Yeah. There's 9 tests on it that everybody really should know about themselves. An ACE score. Are you more right, left brain essence? A lot of interesting things. That is just some basic psychological things that you should know. Why? Because based on what that looks like, you're going to be and if you're not healed from some of these subconscious wounds, every human being on this planet, this is what I'm coming to understand. There's these 5 wounds. Look them up. I have this awesome little graphic and I show all my clients. I'm like, all of your crapola is coming from this stuff right here. And it's abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, and injustice. They each have symptoms that come off of them. So if you're core caretakers between 0 and 7, you were raised under conditional love, then there's a piece of you that needs to reconcile that, because all of us want to be seen and to be heard and to be understood and to be felt and all this stuff. But we don't have the skills or the tools to really be able to do that. And so what happens when we fall in love, there's all these awesome chemicals and we're like, ooh, we get all attracted.
All the butterflies and
butterflies and it's new and everything. So for us to recognize the 5 wounds, when we come in a relationship, we were talking about how it's the initial attraction is there. But if couples want to thrive for the long haul, you're going to have to master vulnerability and humility, because you cannot have authenticity without it. And that's where REAL, people are either in relationships and situationships, or they are doing the personal work and are making the effort. They're not waiting till they have problems and they hate each other to get help. These are couples that understand, just like if their body's going to stay healthy, they got to put a little time and effort. If they're going to be successful at work, there's some things that they need to do. Well, the most important relationship you have is with yourself and the person that you're with the majority of the time. Why? Because if that's toxic, if that's unhealthy, it stresses you out. And what stress does to us, we were talking about at health at the very beginning, the health of your relationship is important because y'all's nervous systems sync up. Okay. So we have to care about our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being, and do the independent daily work, or whatever that looks like weekly, to keep your balance and yourself, your joy levels and your health levels good. You cannot rely on your partner to fill that for you or be that for you. They're supposed to add to it. Now, I understand a lot of people are already in relationships or married and they didn't learn all this, but you can. Y'all can step into these realms, but it takes 2 to tango. And so I was in a 10-year relationship where towards the end, I was having all of this spiritual awakening. And I was like, oh my God, unconditional love. Let's do this. Heal our traumas. We're projecting our pain onto each other, guys. Your partner is going to have the most perfect things to cause that to be flared up. Why? Because it needs to be assessed and addressed, revealed and healed. You have to feel it to heal it. And most people don't want to deal with that. They want fantasy-based love, the kind that you see in movies and in books that we read, in this princess and, oh, you're here to save me. And there's always this story about the savior of somebody outside of yourself in religion and in relationships, especially as women. It's like, no. Now, we do not need to be the kind of women that are like, I don't need a man, and blah, blah, blah. Men have been bamboozled and wounded in a lot of ways in this world, and so have women. And between the two genders, yes, the women got the short end of the stick. The repression and suppression and oppression has been of the feminine and the matriarch. They didn't give the feminines intelligence and wisdom its due respect. And now it's a revival of that. I don't really like that word because it has like religious connotations, but we have to remember who we are. We have to heal the things that are causing us to feel like we're not worthy, that we're worthless, that we're insignificant, that, we don't matter, and all this stuff. Like to live in that space, in that state all the time, it's debilitating for us. It ruins our relationships and it ruins our health in a lot of different ways. So when you have 2 people that are open to hearing information, there's Esther Perel, there's all these amazing, Dr. Gottman, he talks about the 4 horsemen. And I studied a lot of different teachers, and then the teacher source creator that was teaching me what unconditional love was, and then painstakingly going through the breakdown of the old effed up Janie, so that I could rebuild a more whole, balanced version of me, and then do my best on a daily basis to love myself enough and love God enough and love humanity enough to do the best I can each day. And that's to be as authentic as I can be, which is a loving individual. We are all, look at babies, y'all. They're so sweet, and you see somebody crying and then they just want to go and touch you. Like, we're built for compassion. We're built for empathy. But men have been disconnected from their feelings in a lot of ways, and it's silly and it's dumb. And the thing is, they're 3.5 times more likely to commit suicide. Why? Because they also are lacking their own brotherhood. They think drinking and watching football and telling crude jokes and stuff, that's relaxing. Nobody understands how to really restore themselves. And more importantly, in relationship, REAL. What does it mean to be responsible? What does it mean to be empathetic? What does it mean to be accepting and accountable? And what does it mean to be loyal? What are you loyal to? What does responsibility mean? How do you need to be responsible to yourself? And in partnership, y'all have to communicate about a reciprocity, a respect, an equality of like balance of like chores sometimes, or maybe one person has to do a little bit more than the other, but there's these fundamental things that we need to have on a daily basis. And you're gonna laugh because I have all these acronyms. Oh my God, y'all, I swear to God. The when I get ideas and stuff, they always come in acronyms. So
okay, tell.
Safe. Oh, I'll hit RAD first. RAD, the RAD love deeds: respect, appreciate, and desire. Desire, that's simple. Verbal compliments and touch. We have all these receptors on our skin. And if you were born into a family where touch was not given, and or actually when you craved it, you were like shunned, or when you did get touch, it was hurtful, then guess what? You're like, I don't like touch. I don't need touch. That's a wound right there. Touch is essential. It's not like you have to have sex every day, but some type of intimacy, some type of touch. Me and my boyfriend, we do pretty regularly. We'll do like 5-minute cards where it's like, hey, can I have a 5-minute card? And we'll like, rub each other's feet or do a quick little, or just like hug each other. We're like, let's just cuddle for like 5 minutes. And we're like, we're like, oh, kiss, kiss.
I love that. I love to cuddle. Like for me, with other people to cuddle is weird because I never had that. I never had that real connection with touch and cuddle. So that's weird to me. But with Davey, with my partner, I love it. I can cuddle in bed for hours. I'm like,
see, that's so beautiful. And that was work that you did. And that could have been one of his love languages. That's one of the things on the 9 Know Thyself Jumpstarter Kit test is know your love language, know your ACE score, your attachment style, your love language, how you communicate. Are you more left and right brain? That's another thing I teach people, how to have that brain synchronization. The right brain, they consider the feminine and the left side's the masculine, but it's really logical and analytical and emotional. It's the thinker and the feeler. And we have given a lot more attention to one than the other. And it's nice when you're able to know in certain scenarios when it would be better. It's about bridging the two. In relationship, having a safe talk, getting really good with the safe steps. Basically, S is seek the truth. Now, that's a big thing, and I won't go deep into it, but if it's like a little misunderstanding, it's like, what was really going on? Why did I really say that? Why, what am I really feeling? What 5 wounds is this really touching on right now? It's like getting the behind the scenes data and seeking the truth. There's 2 subjective realities that are going on. So when you get real good at having safe talks, it's easy to see where the glitch and miscommunication happen. Because when I say certain set of words, my meaning and intention behind that could be interpreted by his brain in a way that is not good. And then I'm like, and then he's got this reaction, and it's like, I know I'm throwing a lot of information, but there's a book called The 4 Agreements. And that is, don't make assumptions, don't take things personal, be impeccable with your word, and do the best you can each day. And he just recently read that book, and he was like, oh my God, I totally get what you're talking about. I'm like, exactly, yo. We're so quick to make an assumption and to jump to conclusions and to think that the way we interpret it is exactly the way it was. So we need to learn how to create space, take a breath, pause, not talk when we're really agitated and stuff, because then our hearing and our seeing scope goes like this. And it's like, I'm on walkie-talkie and he's on a walkie-talkie, but I'm on channel 1, he's on channel 2, and you ain't getting through to each other. But yet you sit there and you just keep trying and trying. It's not about winning. That's why I told Justin, I'm like, look, in scenarios where there's some conflict, you both win, you both lose. You're both right, you're both wrong. If you could just get to that place, then it's cool. Let's get to the truth. Where are we on the same page? So seek the truth. Accept accountability and responsibility. When there's a glitch and we have some kind of, we go back and trace what I call the dominoes. And we go back. If I was the first domino, I'd be like, oh, when I said this, blah, blah, blah. And then you did that. And then we see, and then we each take accountability and responsibility for where we could have course corrected and done different. You know what I mean? And then we kiss and make up. But that's where the F comes in. F is free your mind. We have to free our mind of what our egos are trying to tell us was really happening. And I know his tone, his nonverbals. When he goes into a place where he sees me as an adversary, I'm like, we can't talk right now, bro, because you're looking at me like I'm not your friend and I'm totally your friend. So I'm saying something right now that doesn't sound very loving to you, but I am being loving. So I'm going to go to my room and I'm going to take a breath and let's take a breather. And when you come back to the senses of the Holy Spirit, then we could talk. Yeah. Now that took a long time for me as a woman to be able to do that, because in my old self was hell bent on trying to get them to understand where I'm coming from. But when somebody is in that egoic state, you're never going to get them to, because they don't want to. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. There's a resistance. They want to fight. They don't want to talk. They don't want to communicate. They want to fight. And that's a debate. Like that somebody's got to win. And I don't want to play that game anymore. You understand? Yeah. So once you're able to understand S, A, and F, and you're not going to be able to do that unless you really know yourself, guys. Okay. You get to E, you get to express and expand your heart and live and lead in love in your partnership. Y'all, this is alchemy. Y'all can heal your crapola in like tandem. You know, you want to tango really awesome. Y'all are going to step on each other's toes a little bit before it gets all smooth. Yeah. And then you have delicious love. This is mindful love, y'all. Mindful. It's whole. I has seen the beast in Justin. He's seen the beast in me. And I know people are like, oh, beast, what do you mean? The dark side, the ugliness or whatever. But it's only because we can explain to each other how that got built in the first place. And the medicine that we're giving ourselves to help. But we have to understand there's certain things that we're going to do to each other that's going to poke that dragon. And we have to know what those things are so we can little by little start tweaking them. It doesn't mean you change who you are at your core value. It's about how do you bring consideration and caring, loving care and compassion into your partnership while each person is growing and evolving into the best version of themselves. We laugh a lot too, though. We sing and dance at karaoke, and he's real playful and kid-like. He's actually little like me, and that's another thing. We need to let go of the visual sometimes of what we see ourselves with. I had never dated a short guy, and I'm little. I'm only like 5 foot, but all my boyfriends were always tall. You know, us girls were like, "Oh, I want a tall guy."
Tall guy, yeah.
Yeah. And he's 5'4". But anyway, but he's so much more man than I've ever been with, you know, because he was the one guy that's showing me that he's got the courage to surrender and to heal all these ideas and these brokenness that he had around the feminine, and really finding his wholeness as a gentleman, you know. And I was like, if you want to be with me, this is kind of the man that I need to be with, you know. And I'm cool not being with anybody because I'm very happy and fulfilled. So if you can meet me in this level of consciousness, and he asked me every day, what could I do for you? And then I jokingly, but I mean it, I'm like, love yourself. Just love yourself. Love yourself the best you can each day, because when you're doing that, you treat me awesome.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. So people often say that people can only love you when you love yourself. What do you think about that? Because I semi agree with it.
Okay. And I probably understand where you're coming from. Yeah. Because like in my last relationship, or even when I think of like my other relationships in my life, I was a very giving, loving person. But see, I had codependency issues. You know, like there was that codependency stuff that I didn't know I had, that was coming from, I was adopted. And even though I was adopted into an awesome family and never felt angry at anybody for that happening, I had a wound deep inside of me that my baby self took on, which is why I kept attracting men that were falling under what would be called the avoidant attachment style. And that would press on all of my abandonment stuff, I didn't know it at the time, but now that I know what I know, I can choose differently.
Yeah.
There was a reason why I brought that up. You asked me something, about loving self.
Yeah.
So I feel like a big part of me wasn't loving me, but I still gave them a lot of love. Some of those boyfriends, actually, they ended up going to therapy afterwards. And I got a couple of emails that were like, you were the greatest thing and that you were so loving, but I couldn't receive your love and blah, blah, blah. See, I kept picking people that couldn't receive that couldn't receive that type of love. And you have to understand, the people that adopted me, my mom and dad, they gave me all the love languages. I grew up in a really safe home. My trauma came from sex trauma that they were not aware of, that I had dealt with when I was young. And then that abandonment wound that I thought I didn't have, because I hit the jackpot, man. It was like, oh, this is awesome. But when you start studying epigenetics and you start studying how the spirit and the soul and just how our electromagnetic biofield works, and just this whole experience, you start to, it's actually very fascinating. It's really fascinating. And then you start to feel, for me, I felt an accountability and responsibility to, heal those things so that I didn't hurt anybody else. Because even though I was the giver, and I didn't really receive all that much, that reciprocity wasn't there, that still, I needed to fix that. I needed to be able to receive love as much as I was giving it. And there was a part of me that felt guilty around that I didn't even know that I had, So, and that's tied to like probably 4 different layers of stuff. But when you start to figure it out, you can address each one. And I know in those relationships, even though I was the giver, I was still hurting them in some way. You know what I mean? Like there was still something that was pressing on their traumas too. We were hurting each other. And that's why it's important for you to take the time to develop good listening skills. There's stuff called active listening, compassionate listening that you can research. There's all different kinds. Aside from my safe communication method, there's other imago, learning what empathy is if you don't really know how to empathize or feel because you're disconnected from that. Children who grow up in homes where no one really cared to understand them and needing them to feel them and protect them or help them, became like it was impossible for their caretaker to do that. The brain is so resilient that it starts, that part of like our mirror neurons, the part of us that allows us to empathize with others, it starts to kind of go offline like a computer. And you can revive it thanks to neuroplasticity. It is possible, but you have to make the effort. And so if you're going to be in a relationship, be honest with yourself about your abilities and your capabilities, because otherwise it's just going to cause you more stress. It's almost better to be single instead of and the thing is, we're afraid to be alone. A lot of us don't want to be alone. A lot of us are addicted to affection and something's better than nothing. And that whole attitude and mentality needs to die. And I think the other thing that needs to die too is this idea that, oh, you're not in a relationship, like you're single, or you know what I mean?
You're 30, you should be having kids and, bought your own house and be married. And
all that stuff. That also causes a lot of bondage and restrictions around people, which causes us to not end up living out the life that really would have been the life that would have been most meaningful and fulfilling and satisfying and rich, richness from the inside. The funny thing is, people, when you learn how to dial into peace, like there's a power of peace from within, when you start to learn how to heal all this stuff and you start to dial back into your natural essence and who you really are and start to feel the confidence and the breath coming into you for you to be able to make healthier choices and decisions, and you're cutting things off and letting things go and you're feeling all good. More abundance of health, abundance of clean water in your friendships and your relationships, opportunities and money, your self-worth, it completely can impact your ability to have financial abundance. So, you really want to get dialed into that too. And it's not this narcissistic become full of yourself, it's a nice grounded balance, humble, yet confident. You don't look at yourself as better than anybody else. You understand we're all sort of in this together. And the only person that you're really in competition with is you. You're your biggest adversary, but you can also be your biggest cheerleader. And as a mindfulness coach, that's ultimately what I'm helping people understand. We can't get rid of the ego, can't get rid of the shadow. We can't get rid of that side of our nervous system, can't get rid of fear. But when you understand it differently and see it differently, your perspective opens and you start reframing things and you start flexing some muscles and putting those tips and those tools and the techniques to take back the power of your mind, body, heart, and soul. Anything is possible. Literally, it's like magic happens. And it's crazy to think that we live in a world where there's just so much chaos and so much division and all this stuff. And it's going to get uglier before it gets better. But we all needed to get a good look at the state, right? Like the temperature and the pulse of the people. And clearly we have a mental and emotional spiritual crisis that's taking place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're acting barbaric, and it's going to take a while, but there's enough of us now that are doing the personal work. And just like yourself, you're being called to extend a hand, like that stewardship and that servitude, where you're like, you know what? I want other people to feel as good as me. And I remember what it used to feel like when I just thought I was so bleh, and life just didn't have any zest to it. And now it does. And even though I have dark days, it still is better to live from this place. Life is better. Just like we talked before about your relationship, and you have an amazing relationship with your partner, and I think it's because both of y'all do you have your individual work and lives and the way that you take care of yourselves, but there's a balance of interdependence and independence.
Yeah.
And y'all have when it comes to having a mindful love and a real relationship, y'all both have to communicate what is our little self-care toolbox, our rad love deeds, respect, appreciation, giving thanks every day. Justin and I say thank you for all kinds of little things all the time. And that should never stop. That's just a form of, I don't know, just gratitude, it's like flex those muscles. Respect, it's like honor your word. Do your words and your actions match up? Are you putting people down when they come share an idea or a dream, or you're like, that's stupid, why would you do that? And you're all like negative and pessimistic. And then all of a sudden your partner has a reaction to that. And you're like, what? You're so sensitive. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Did you ever consider maybe you're insensitive?
Yeah.
Why is it always that? Why does nobody ever say, oh, so we just need to get real with ourselves, okay? If you want to have a real relationship that provides healthy fruit, then you're going to need to know how to water the plant. And if you want that passion, if you want passion, master compassion. When a man knows how to understand his woman, trust me, she's going to want to treat you like a king, not just in the kitchen, but in the bedroom too, okay? So that's the campfire. You got to do things to make sure that fire stays lit, and the friendship is the plant. You got to know how to water that. And you can't expect just one person to be doing that all the time. You know what I mean? No. It's about fairness.
Yeah. I have one question. If people want to work on themselves, what is something that you can give them as an advice or tool to do? Because I know in the beginning of my own journey, it's really difficult to start, to think about who am I without all the beliefs that over the years people put on me, and I took them on and saw them as my reality. So how would you start that journey? How do you find yourself outside all those beliefs and all the other things?
Okay. I think
it's a difficult one.
Well, I know, because there's so many different directions I could go with that. However, I want it to be practical. My stuff is really about practical and playful. Okay. And I think the first thing that people need to do is, because there's a spark that comes when we're playing, like when you play, and there's like a joy that kind of comes from that, like an exuberance. Yeah. And I think most people are lacking that little spark. And instead of giving this big old task and everything, maybe just start with take a couple of minutes and write down like what makes you laugh, what makes you feel good. Like you're not really thinking about the past or the future when you're doing it. Is it a place that you go to, like where you're just like present, where you're just in the now? Maybe it's your nephew. You're like, oh my God, when I play with Rodney, and we go, we play hide and go seek, or we play, pirates and stuff. Like you're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about responsibility. We need to give a little time and attention to our inner child. And if you're not going to go do some healing work on your inner child, at least let your inner child come out and play. And I think right now, especially with the heaviness of the world, I'm here to bring levity to brevity. Does that mean that I turn a blind eye to all the things that are going on? No. Do I sometimes, as an empath, do I have days? I literally have had days where I can feel and almost hear the screams and the cries of like children and women. Like the pain and the heartache, like, oh my God, it's so debilitating. You know what I mean? And I weep and everything, but then it's like, I can't just stay in that state. What can I do to help bring happiness and peace and like teach people how to stop being mean and ugly to each other and how to ignite kindness? So going back to childlikeness, and joy and playfulness, I think that's the first thing is what makes you happy? Like, and why does it make you happy and what makes you happy? And then create a little list. Sadly, I don't want to say sadly, well, it is kind of sad actually. Now I think about it, when sometimes I'll ask a client and they're not really sure. And then I'm like, that's okay. Maybe just one or two things come. Well, that's something. It could be like, think about when you were a little kid, maybe you freaking loved roller skating. Well, look up a skating rink. I did that like a few months ago, like before COVID. And I was like, oh yeah, but you only go for an hour or whatever, but it's free and then you're rolling around and you're like, it's that cool music and you're dancing, you just do something instead of like, look at that as a self-care practice, basically. Playtime, or inner child like freedom and carefreeness, so you don't feel so restricted. When we're in a state of contraction and worry, the first thing that goes is oxygen. That's why breath work is so important. And 70% of the food for the cells is oxygen, which is what creates inflammation. And inflammation is the root of all diseases. It's going to show up differently in different people. But that's why I feel like playing is a good way to relax. Playing.
So could be dancing or going on a swing. I love that when I was a kid. And even now, when I do it, I see a swing and I'm like, I'm going to get on it. Like, I don't care if children are laughing at me. Like, I'm going on it.
Yes, I go to a park very regularly, like some park here in San Antonio, and I like to go to the ones that have playgrounds. So I'll usually go slide on it. I'm pretty little, so at first they don't even think I'm an adult until they see the front of me and they're like, oh, because I'm all little. But a swing, oh my God, I cannot not resist getting on a swing when I see it.
And then when you're high, you're jumping off it, and then
you're all daring. And that's how we need to live. When we were kids, it was like anything was possible until that imagination, that creativity, and that geniosity, that individual expression of love and who you are, it gets suppressed and beat out of us, and then we turn into these like these zombies, and it's like, wake up, remember who you are. Who do you want to be? You can be whoever you want to be. What do you want to do? What do you want to experience?
We think so much about what other people think of us. Like when you are in the street and you see someone dancing, a lot of people are like, that guy is weird, or, but he's living his best life. We should do it. Like sometimes when I'm waiting in line and I get a song in my head, I'm just like dancing a little bit.
Yeah. And that's something too that I tell people. How comfortable are you dancing, like by yourself? And or just, and there's this restriction. And so that speaks volumes about us as a person sometimes, you know what I mean? Like we worry so much about what other people are going to think, and no one's even in the room, and you feel weird and awkward. And so that's one of my mottos is like, be weird. Sometimes I'll post like me just just being a dork, and it's like, be a dork, be silly. We need a little bit more of that anyway. It's good medicine for stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So just be weird and I feel like kids are so magical, you know what I mean? Where everything is just like, whoa. And that's another thing too, is, when was the last time that your breath was taken away, or that you were just like, I wonder, that childlike wonder? We need to reignite that. And nature is such a cool place to really bring you into the now, because there's so many things that you can like look and, just be an explorer. That's another reason why I like to go to nature, when I like see new things or stuff, or maybe I see a leaf but it looks like something different to me. It's creating that abstract eye, that really helps too. So maybe the answer would be, make a list of what really lights up your heart, what makes you laugh, what makes you smile, what brings you joy, and go into nature and just go back to being that kid that likes to go into tree houses and stuff.
Yeah. Well, what is one lesson that you've learned from your experience in life? I know it's always a hard question, but
it's okay.
What's one lesson, or maybe two really important ones?
I think probably one of the biggest ones for me has been being okay with being misunderstood. When you're a kind of person like me, and there's a lot of people like this that really can put themselves in another person's shoes and really see the value in that, and seeing other people's perspective and being okay. Like, I may not agree with it, but gosh, I totally get, like, I could see why you would see it like that or something. I think that's a beautiful gift. However, the downside, if there was one, is then there's a piece of you that doesn't get why other people can't reciprocate it. And now that I understand how the brain works and filters and just all this stuff, it really helped me just be okay with shutting up. It's like silence is golden sometimes, Janie. And I had to get schooled the hard way on that one, but man, do I get it now. So that one I think is a valuable one for a lot of people, even if you're not as empathic or as understanding. Like, for some of us, we just are hell bent on getting somebody to get what we're saying, and some people are hell bent on misunderstanding you. So that was a big one for me. And I think the other part of it probably for me was getting comfortable with the power of my intuitiveness and not being afraid to share that with people, because afraid of just a lot of stigmas and things like that. And I notice now when I do allow myself to share with people, when it's like really strong and I say something, it's very moving for them. And a lot of times it makes sense and they're very grateful. I've never really gotten a negative response. Like an example, one time I was at a restaurant and I stopped in for lunch. An appointment got canceled. So I had an hour to kill. So I went to this place and I was like, oh, I'm going to go to the bar and have a little lunch. And the girl behind that was helping me, the waitress, bartender, something was telling me, tell her not to go back to him. Like there's somebody that's coming into her life, and just don't even entertain it. Well, I was like in that place in my life where I was finally getting comfortable like speaking it, because it's one thing when people come to me for a session and I kind of let them know what to expect and stuff, and that's a possibility, that some subconscious data will come through, and if they're open, I'll take it, write it down, share it with them or whatever. But for it to happen like this is different. So I was like, hey, listen, this may sound a little unusual, but this happens to me sometimes where I just get this feeling, and this is what's coming to me for you. And then she was like, oh my God. She goes, my ex-boyfriend that took me forever to finally break up with him called me yesterday. And he wants to see me. And I started seeing somebody new and it's going okay. And I was like, and she was like, I'm not going to do it. She goes, and I had a little feeling, but I started to second guess myself. And I was like, go with your first feeling. Isn't that crazy?
It's amazing. If you have that gift and gift, I think
We
know
all have the
yourself
gift.
enough. Yeah.
Yes. And because I am so in awe of it and so in love with it and so humbled by it, I know that that awe in me and that literal surprise even in my own self. When this first started happening to me, I told God, I was like, I'm gonna cry thinking about it.
Oh.
I was just like, I never want to lose that childlike excitement over it. And since 2013, I've been getting some of the most amazing visuals and pictures and colors and things that just make sense to people, or messages. And here we are in 2021. This started happening to me, like, I guess 2012 or whatever. And I'm still just in awe of it still. And I really believe that however long God wants to use me like this, that I will remain like that, like forever.
Yeah.
And I just can't even believe sometimes, like, what I'm doing and what I'm being called to do. And I honor everybody else on the planet that's surrendering into what they really are and what they're really here to do, because it does make a difference. It's really not about the numbers or anything. Like, when I just help one person or one couple understand each other a little bit better, to me, that's God told me a long time ago, each person is the universe. So when you make one person laugh because of your silly videos that you post without worrying about what people are going to think about you, you're like making the whole universe laugh and giggle. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Or if somebody gets curious about something or gets more deeply connected to God, like to me, because of you, then look at that as helping the whole universe. So with that being said, I'm like a watery mess. Maybe you'll cut some of this out. Anyway, so I know we're already coming close to our time and stuff, and so I don't want to say too much more, but I appreciate you because you are one of those people that have woken up to their beauty and their awe and their miraculousness and their glory and their gifts, and you're doing what you can to help humanity. And that's really what we're all here for, y'all. We're like one big familia, brothers and sisters with different wounds, and we don't need to be ashamed. And it's so part of us is broken, but there's a piece of us that's like the whole, like it's the allness, it's the nothingness and the everything, and we're a piece of that before we're this. And when you get dialed into the light that's coursing through you, that's making your heart beat, and you start to get curious about what that is and how it's connected to all things, watch what happens.
You're amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you a lot, and all the things that you've shared today. It's been a lot, but it's amazing, and you are a beautiful soul, and I just cannot thank you enough. Like, you're so real, you're just so you, and I love it. I love your energy. I love everything about you. I just want to say
and you know what's so great is all that you love about me, that you see in me, is you too, and that's just you loving you through me. Isn't that funny?
It is. So
thank you so much.
If people want to work with you, how can they contact you? Do you take on new clients, or do you have like challenges going on, or how can people reach you? Because you're just amazing and people should do that.
Thank you so much. So they can go to janieterrazas.com to at least be a part of my community. If you enter your email, you'll get a couple free PDFs, the Know Thyself Jumpstarter Kit and the 7 Positive Daily Habits. I do want to. The 7 Positive Daily Habits are really simple. So you guys will get that. I am getting ready to roll out a program this coming year. And that's going to be like a downloadable program where it'll be like group therapy, like sessions, not therapy, but like sessions that will unite once a week for those that are taking and going through the program. And it's called there's a piece of me that doesn't even want to say it. I just recently, somebody asked me about it in an interview, but it's called paz mesa. And paz mesa was a word that through my own coaching, oh God, developed, like it came to us, it came to me. And paz means peace in Spanish. Greek, mesa in Greek means within, means inside. But in Spanish, it means table.
Yeah,
So
true.
paz mesa is peace within or peace table. And I'm breaking down the basically these 8 steps for one to go through the process of getting to their authentic self, and what that's been like. So I'm really excited to be launching that this coming year, and they'll be able to do that. But for now, I do one-on-one coaching. Soon I will be releasing some classes, like freebie classes and things like that. If they go to my YouTube channel, they could just search Janie Terrazas, or if they go to Rise Above TV, that's a platform that I have, like basically a place where you can go get mindful content for living and loving. And a lot of what I put on Rise Above TV, I also have available on my channel, but there's some meditations on there. There's like move your body. It's like these little videos, just to get your body moving. There's a series called Cracking the Codependency Code, or there's all kinds of stuff on there. So P3, which I think you're going to be on my P3 show. I think you said yes to it. It's called Power, Passion, Purpose. So if you're looking for inspiration or anything like that, go to Rise Above TV, search the YouTube channel, go to my website. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, we could do a consultation call. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, man.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, like you said, you have nothing else to say. So not just another like quick lesson or thing that people can do from home for themselves, or
absolutely. You know what? Okay, so I highly recommend Peppermint Essential Oil because it's good for headaches, it's good for congestion in chest, and it's also good for digestive, like nausea or like stomach issues and things like that. It's also a very powerful smell. When we think of peppermint, it automatically you think of chill because it's like cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm going to grab my peppermint really quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm sure y'all have heard of this before, but it's a breathing exercise. Okay. And you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, and then you release for 4. But that ties into SNAP. Okay. SNAP is an acronym to help you snap out of a direction. Maybe somebody triggered you and you need to sort of like take a pause, right? So it's an acronym for S, stop, and take a breath. And I think 4 seconds is good. It's kind of like,
yeah,
I love my peppermint. I get high on this all the time. I'm like, peppermint. My God, I put it under my tongue all the time. Oh my God, it's so awesome. So I know you're not going to have peppermint on your pocket or anything like that, but just somebody pisses you off, they cut you off, and you want to go into the road range. It's like, breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and then breathe out for 4. Okay, N. While you're doing that, N is notice what you're feeling inside. Notice what's going on. What are you thinking? What emotional stuff are you feeling? Is your tummy clenching up? Is your heart racing? Take your mind inwardly. Yes, you've already noticed what triggered you, but go inside and notice what's happening. Okay. And then A, accept and allow that. If you do that, instead of resisting everything, breathe it out. It's almost like emotional freedom technique. I'm an instructor with tapping. And so it's this idea of tapping is the same way. It's like, oh my God, I'm so pissed that Greg just ate my soup from the lunchroom. And he always does that. And you're supposed to tap and just say what you're feeling. And then when you're done, you say, and even though I feel this, I love and value myself wholeheartedly. That's the EFT thing. Okay. But let's get back to SNAP. Notice what's going on, accept and allow what's happening. That's kind of that stuff that we were talking about. And then proceed with kindness. Proceed with kindness. And just try that a few times. I mean, it's not always going to work, guys, but it's when you flex it enough times, then it becomes like a second nature. And then you start learning how to use, between a breath, it's like the high and the low. We got to learn how to use that space between. So snap is a good thing. Stop, S-T-O-P, stop, take a breath, observe what's going on, proceed with kindness. It's very similar to snap.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks again for today. Like, I really, really appreciate it. And I'll leave all your details in the description. Yeah.
Yes, please. And I forgot to tell them, connect with me on social media, IG and FB at Janie the Mindfulness Coach.
Yes, I am. I'm following you, and you post a lot of funny, good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you have any questions regarding to health or mindset, please don't hesitate to contact me. I will always answer you. And I'm basically everywhere. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. You can send me an email at info@pursuitofhealthiness.com. And I have a couple of challenges going on, free challenges on my website, www.pursuitofhealthiness.com. I also have a program called The Ultimate Lifestyle, where I coach you, where I guide you and support you to make the ultimate lifestyle change. If this sounds like you, then definitely check out my website, and otherwise I will see you next episode.